Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, FDA approved for over 20 years. So, talk to your specialist to see if Botox Cosmetic is right for you.
For full prescribing information, including boxed warning, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
Remember to ask for Botox Cosmetic by name. To see for yourself and learn more, visit BotoxCosmetic.com. That's BotoxCosmetic.com.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
This 80s flick was just your standard love story. Boy meets girl, boy falls for girl, girl turns out to be a fish. This beloved film captivated audiences with its whimsical blend of comedy, fantasy, and heartwarming romance. From the moment the mermaid first emerges from the ocean waves, the story sweeps us away on an unforgettable journey. How will she adapt to life on land, and can her budding relationship with the man who rescued her overcome the challenges of their vastly different worlds? Stay tuned as we dive deep into the film's enduring legacy, the talented cast, and the magic that made it an iconic romantic comedy. So catch a cab to Cape Cod, order some fresh lobster, and fill up the bathtub with salt water as Ben Carpenter, Bethany Wells, and I discuss Splash from 1984 on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast.
Alan Bauer has a very successful business.
Okay, Bauer, you're ruined. You're finished. You're a ghost in this business.
How'd you like some bananas at cost?
Deal.
He's got the wisdom and support of his brother Freddie.
I love this guy. Do you hear me? I love him. Give me a kiss. What's the matter? You too big? Give me her.
I just want to meet a woman. I want to meet a woman and I want to fall in love. It's not much.
And worst of all, Alan Bauer feels with all his heart that he doesn't have one.
Freddie, something in here is not working.
There are worse organs not to be working.
Where to? Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
And then, one day, accidentally, from out of the blue, it happens.
There is a mermaid in New York City.
How come she's got legs?
She has legs out of the water. She has fins in the water.
All my life, I've been waiting for someone, and when I find her, she's a fish. Nobody said love's perfect.
Daryl Hannah, Tom Hanks, and John Candy. Splash, a fantastic tale about a fantastic tale.
Come on in, the water's fine.
I'm Tim Williams, the mastermind behind the mic at the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. Joining me on each epic episode is a guest co-host who's as crazy about 80s flicks as they are about wearing parachute pants and solving Rubik's Cubes. We're diving into nostalgic treasures we saw at the local theater, rented on VHS tapes, or discovered on cable TV. From blockbusters that make you say,
I feel the need for speed.
to hidden gems that'll have you screaming,
They're here.
It's a blast to relive these old memories and share our thoughts on what made these movies so special. We reminisce about our first time watch experiences, share our favorite scenes, and even discover fascinating behind the scenes tales about the cast and crew along the way. Haven't hit that subscribe button yet? What are you waiting for?
Come on, do it.
On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And hey, while you're at it, be a pal and drop us a written review along with a 5-star rating to tell us what you think about us.
The sportos and motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
Take a day off and come hang out with us on social media. Just search 80s Flick Flashback on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget to bookmark 80sflickflashback.com for more gnarly content.
Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative.
Want to crank it all the way up to 11? Become a supporter on buymeacoffee.com for only $5 a month.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Click the link in our episode show notes, and while you're there, soak up the extra trivia and fun stuff that didn't make it into today's show. Thanks again for tuning in. Now, let's get right into today's episode.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Well, welcome in, everybody. So glad you could be with us on this episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. And we are tackling a film that I have wanted to do for a while. I'm a big fan of this movie. I don't know why it took me this long to do it, but I'm glad to be doing it now and glad to have the two co-hosts I have with me to discuss it. They were so great on another film we did that's somewhat similar, Poltergeist. They're back again to talk about Splash. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Ben Carpenter. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And the lovely Bethany Wells. How are you, Bethany?
I'm just peachy.
Peachy. Okay.
Just
I was waiting
peachy.
I thought I was going to get some kind of fish pun there. I was like,
I was really trying to dig down deep. It is gone today, but who knows? Maybe later.
Yeah, they'll come out eventually.
And then you'll just have to edit it in.
Right. We'll try to keep the fish puns to a minimum. So, all right. Well, let's talk about Splash from 1984. When did you see Splash for the first time?
Well, I was telling Ben earlier that I saw Splash for the first time. I don't remember. I was a kid. He told me he told me to give like a really fun story. And nope. As with earlier, don't have the fish puns, don't have a fun story. I just was a kid. I think it was a movie that came on TBS like constantly.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah.
And it's a mermaid movie.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I was all about it. I love mermaids, love Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
What could go wrong?
What about you, Ben? In the theater?
I did see it in the theater,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember no further details. I could make them up if you want me to.
Right.
But no, I know I saw it in the theater. I would have been 11 years old. I do remember it as being like, I think, wasn't it the first Touchstone movie?
It was the very first Touchstone movie.
Yeah, so I remember it being like, oh, it's a Disney movie. Like we can take little Ben to see this. It's technically a Disney movie.
Right.
Yeah.
We were shocked in the first, couple of minutes when John Candy shows up with his Penthouse magazines. You're like, oh, okay,
Right.
Baby John Candy starts throwing change on the ground and looking up women's skirts. I went, oh no!
I always try to forget about that part. Yeah,
I did too. And every time I watch it, I'm reminded.
Right. This was humor in 1984, ladies and gentlemen.
It's bad. It's bad humor.
But yeah, similar to you, Ben, I remember seeing this in the theater. I remember going as a family to see it. Once again, probably because Disney, Tom Hanks, we'd seen him on Bosom Buddies. He wasn't quite the movie star that we know him now. This was really his breakthrough role for sure. What I remember is just kind of being completely pulled into the story. Like, I guess I was into kind of fantasy stuff, more like Star Wars stuff, but it was just such a good, whimsical, fun movie. And of course, Tom Hanks is so likable anyway. And then John Candy is hilarious. But it was definitely one that I watched so much, and it had to have come on cable a bunch, later, because I just remember watching this movie over and over and over and over again. So it's always been one that I just have always loved. And it's not one that I'd seen in a long time. So that's the next question. How long has it been since you rewatched it before rewatching it for the podcast?
Yeah, it's been a long time for me too. I have no idea really. Probably at least 15 years, something like that.
What about you, Bethany?
Probably the same. I think it was probably high school since the last time I really sat down and watched it, just from beginning to end. So yeah.
Yeah. I know when Disney Plus launched and I saw that it was on there, and of course there was all the hubbub when it first got put on Disney Plus because they altered some of the imagery to make it a little bit more family friendly. But I'm like, that's the one part you're gonna like cover up anyway. So
if you want to make it family friendly, you've got to edit John Candy completely out of the movie.
Pretty much, yeah. So I remember going back and watching it then, but I think that was what probably within 2 or 3 years ago. But before then, I mean, at least 20 years. I mean, I probably watched it last when it was on TV. I mean, I don't think I owned this one on VHS. I didn't own it on DVD. And the funny thing is now, like, you can't find a physical copy of this anywhere. Like, I even looked on eBay. There's a DVD copy that's like goes from anywhere from $60 to like 130. That's how rare it is on Blu-ray. And there's some DVDs that are even like 40 or $50. So it's very rare to find a physical copy. So thanks to Disney Plus, you can watch it now. And I think they don't have it edited anymore, I don't think. But
Hold on a second. I may have about $100 sitting over there.
Of course, Laramie has it.
Yeah.
Of course, Laramie has it. Yeah. So yeah, this is one of those. I don't know why it would be a forgotten. I mean, you've got Ron Howard as a first-time or early director. You've got Tom Hanks in his breakthrough role. You've got Daryl Hannah, John Candy, Eugene Levy. Why is this not readily available anywhere for you to watch and to buy? So it's just kind of not sure where the rights got lost, or if they're just waiting to release that all special 4K special collector's edition that we've all been waiting for.
I think a big part of it is so many people are getting away from physical media.
Yeah, which is sad.
That it's just old stuff, like older movies like that. There's not the big push to get them, especially if they're available on streaming. You've got a lot of people's attitude of just like, I can just watch it on Disney Plus. I'm already paying for Disney Plus. Why would I buy a physical thing and then I have to keep it somewhere? Which, our family doesn't live by that rule, but others do.
Right.
Yeah, I used to be a purist like that. I wanted the physical copy of everything, and over the years, it just kind of chipped away at me until I hardly ever buy anything physically anymore. I just rent it, or I mean, sometimes I'll buy it, quote unquote, buy it on the
digital platform,
Apple TV or whatever. But what do you actually own?
Yeah, you don't. That's yeah. I was the same way. I used to have like a very extensive DVD collection, and then when streaming kind of started, I was like, well, who needs this? And I just like sold all of my DVDs, and now I regret it because a lot of the DVDs that I sold, you can't find. Like, I had director's cuts and collector's editions and stuff that you can't find anymore. I went in hard on the digital, and I have a decent digital. I still buy digital stuff now if it's easier to get, or usually if it's a really good deal. But I'm trying to build back up my physical library because, as I've seen where stuff is on a streaming platform, like, oh, I can always watch it on Max or whatever, or Hulu, and then of course when you actually want to watch it, it's not there anymore. And then when you go to rent it, then like, I swear I rent it, and then 2 weeks later, it's up on a platform that I already paid for. And I'm like, this is why I just need to buy it and have it. So, so I'm trying to get more into the physical copy. And then too, with the podcast, especially the 80s movies, I try to find stuff that has the special features for the behind the scenes and the, more stuff about how the movie was made, which is, always fun to watch. And
although onto that point about buying digital copies, you got to be careful with that because you're just buying the license to it.
Right,
and if that company loses that license, you no longer own it.
Yeah.
Like, it's gone.
Yeah. And there's been times where I will go through my collection looking for something to watch, and then a movie will come like a day later. I'll think of it was like, oh, I don't remember seeing that in my. Did they take that? Like, I'm freaked out that they took it out, and I go back and it's there. But it's like, I do kind of worry about the certain movies. If they lose the license or whatever, then it goes away. But I haven't seen that too much. There's a couple that I bought digitally, or I didn't buy, ones that were like gifted, or like I've done a survey and they give you a free copy. And I'm like, I don't ever want to watch this movie again. I don't want it in my collection. But with digital, you can't get rid of, you can't delete it. Like, you have to, I think I went online, you've got to actually call the company, stay on hold, and go through this long process to have them remove it on their end from your library. And I'm like, it should be a lot easier than that. If I don't want to see the movie anymore, why can't I just delete it? I can delete an app off my phone.
Hide. Yeah.
Right. Or hide. Yeah. Just hide it away. So, so now I've just created like different folders for the movies. So I have them categorized by like 80s movies, 90s movies, action, drama, all that kind of stuff. So then if I'm looking for a specific type of movie, I can find it. But anyway, we're way off subject. Let's get back into the episode.
What an enlightening conversation about mermaids.
Yes, exactly. And physical media.
And now these messages.
Are you a fan of movies and TV shows inspired by comics? Ready for a podcast that dives deep into the thrilling world of adaptations? Well, look no further. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. This is your go-to podcast for all things comics on screen. I'm your host, Laramie Wells, and every Monday we explore the dynamic universe where ink meets action. We break down the classics, reveal hidden gems, and uncover the creative process behind your favorite adaptations. Subscribe to Moving Panels now on your favorite podcast platform and join us on this epic journey through the pages of comics and onto the big screen. Remember, new episodes drop every Monday. Don't miss out. Moving Panels, where every panel has a story and every adaptation is a blockbuster. Subscribe today, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
The holiday season officially starts when you get that first card in the mail. Shutterfly makes it easy to add more meaning to the everyday with hundreds of holiday card designs that can be personalized in seconds with your favorite photos from this year. Select your greeting, customize the color, and even add little extras like personalized foil to make a holiday card that really shines. Enjoy 40% off with code SMILE40 at Shutterfly.com and send something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
This episode is brought to you by Opill, the first over-the-counter daily birth control pill available in the U.S. Opill is FDA approved, full prescription strength, and estrogen-free. Plus, there's no prescription needed. Finally, the days of needing a prescription for birth control are over. Opill is available online and at most major retailers. Take control of your health and reproductive journey with Opill. Birth control in your control. Use code BIRTHCONTROL for 25% off your first month of Opill at Opill.com.
What seems to be the problem, pal?
There's just so much pain in the world, so many issues. I don't think I can bear it.
Hell, friendo, it sounds like you could use a dose of pop culture roulette.
Pop culture roulette? What's that? Some sort of pop culture themed podcast or something?
That's right, sonny boy. When hope seems far, dive into some PCR.
But I already get my entertainment news from Variety.
Huh, that's pretty good. If you're a chucklehead, PCR gives you news you need, condensed, unfiltered, and raw, from three nerds who know a little something about something.
Wow, okay, sign me up.
That's the spirit. Pop Culture Roulette. New episodes every Monday, available on all major podcast directories.
All right, so let's jump into story origin and pre-production. One fateful night while driving down the PCH near Malibu in 1977, Brian Grazer, then 25 years old, thought about what it would be like to meet a mermaid and fall in love. For 7 years, he was turned down by most Hollywood studios until he revised his pitch for Splash to be more of a love story between a man and a mermaid. Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel, who penned Ron Howard's Night Shift in 82, and Bruce J. Friedman, who wrote Stir Crazy, were the credited screenwriters for the movie that we know as Splash. The film was initially set up at United Artists, but Brian Grazer decided to take the film elsewhere and took it to the Ladd Company, but Alan Ladd Jr. eventually passed on it. According to the documentary on the Splash 20th Anniversary Edition DVD in 2004, Brian Grazer had pitched the film to numerous studios but was turned down repeatedly until Walt Disney Productions, then headed by Ron W. Miller, agreed to produce the film. The key to the proposal's success was that Grazer changed the premise description from the idea of a mermaid adjusting to life in New York City to that about a love story about an ordinary man in New York City meeting a mermaid. An issue at the time of production was the competition between Splash and another announced but untitled mermaid film from Warner Brothers. It headlined Warren Beatty as its star, who we know was like the biggest star on the planet back in '84, or one of them. Director Ron Howard promised the studio that Splash would be filmed more quickly and cheaply than the other film, which eventually fell through. Howard turned down directing Footloose and Mr. Mom to do Splash instead.
Howard could have directed Footloose.
I don't really see that. I mean, yeah, I can see Mr. Mom. It has a little bit of a Ron Howard kind of appeal to it, but Footloose, that would have been a very different. Yeah,
I love Footloose the way it is.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen Ron Howard's interpretation of Footloose. I'm gonna live in that fantasy for a minute.
Gotcha. I mean, knowing the kind of director he is now, but early in his directing career, that's not, that would have been a very different approach for him. So,
yeah.
But let's talk about Ron Howard as the director. Howard first came to prominence as a child actor, acting in several television series before gaining national attention for playing young Opie Taylor in the sitcom The Andy Griffith Show from 1960 to 1968. He also appeared in the musical film The Music Man in 1962, one of my favorites. He was cast in one of the leading roles in the influential coming-of-age film American Graffiti in 1973 and became a household name for playing Richie Cunningham in the sitcom Happy Days from 1974 to 1980. He starred in films like The Spikes Gang in 1974, The Shootist with John Wayne in 1976, and Grand Theft Auto, not the video game, but the movie from 1977, that being his directorial film debut. In 1980, he left Happy Days to focus on directing, producing, and sometimes writing a variety of films and television series. Those films include Night Shift in 1982, Cocoon in 1985, Willow in 1988, Backdraft in 1991, and The Paper in 1994. He went on to win the Academy Award for Best Director and the Academy Award for Best Picture for A Beautiful Mind in 2001, and was nominated again for the same awards for Frost Nixon in 2008. So we know how great of a director he has become, but I remember him as Richie on Happy Days.
Me too.
Opie on Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
Me too. Although I also love him as narrator in Arrested Development.
Yes. Some of his best work.
Yeah.
So, favorite Ron Howard flick? Just throw it out there. You have one that sticks out?
Oh, man.
Even though it's not one that I mentioned.
Yeah, you didn't mention Apollo 13. That's one I love.
That's high up there. I love A Beautiful Mind. I was a big fan of that movie when it came out. It's not one that I've watched a lot since then, but I was very impressed with it when I first watched it.
That's really tough. I have a very soft spot in my heart for his narration in Arrested Development, just because it's so funny and he's just so good in it and it's so perfect. But obviously that's not the best thing he's ever done. It's just the thing that I think of when I think about him when I'm not thinking about Happy Days or Andy Griffith.
All right, well, let's jump into casting. I don't have a very long cast list, which I'm thankful for on this movie because there's only a few main characters and people that we would recognize. But of course, the star of the movie, Tom Hanks, is Alan Bauer. We've talked about him recently on our episode about The Money Pit. Several established actors such as Chevy Chase, Dudley Moore, Bill Murray, and John Travolta were considered for the lead role. Bill Murray turned it down as he wanted to move away from comedies and do serious films instead. That didn't last very long after his serious movie bombed. Steve Guttenberg also auditioned for the role, and though he did not get the lead, he was remembered when he was cast for the lead in Cocoon a year later. Michael Keaton was offered the role, but he declined so he could star in Mr. Mom. I think we talked about that in the Mr. Mom episode. So a little bit about Tom Hanks. In 1979, he moved to New York City, where he made his film debut in the low-budget slasher film He Knows You're Alone in 1980, and landed a starring role in the TV movie Mazes and Monsters from 1982. The following year, he landed one of the lead roles in the ABC TV pilot Bosom Buddies. He and Peter Scolari played a pair of young advertising men forced to dress as women so they could live in an inexpensive all-female hotel. After landing the role, Hanks moved to Los Angeles. Bosom Buddies ran for 2 seasons, and although ratings were never strong, television critics gave the program high marks. A co-producer, Ian Fraser, told Rolling Stone, "The first day I saw him on set, I thought, too bad he won't be on television for long. I knew he'd be a movie star in 2 years." And he was right. Hanks made a guest appearance on a 1982 episode of Happy Days, where he met the writers Lowell Gans and Bob Lou Mandel, who were writing Splash, still writing it at the time. Gans and Mandel suggested Hanks for the film to director and friend Ron Howard. At first, Howard considered Hanks for the role of the main character's wisecracking brother, the role that eventually went to John Candy. But he was won over by his everyman demeanor, which he thought would work better for the role.
I agree.
Yeah.
Although he can do a bit of the body humor, he's so much better when he's,
wholesome.
Yeah. Like zany Tom Hanks is fun, but it doesn't carry a movie as well as the everyman kind of role. You know, kind of the same thing. Michael Keaton has the same thing, like, well, besides Beetlejuice, but he's only in it for like 20 minutes. So you can forgive him. But, you know, and he's like totally crazy, totally zany. It's hard, you know, you need that groundedness of the character to really sell it, I think. So even though
when did he start going more towards like the serious role? Because he
early
was
90s.
Like Big.
Was it Forrest Gump? Was it Forrest Gump was like the big one, or
the first dramatic role was Philadelphia? That was the first one.
That was before Forrest Gump.
That was the big, like, oh, he's gonna try drama. Like that was the first real big dramatic role, and then that's when it kind of the trajectory of him moving into like Forrest Gump, Castaway, The Green Mile,
Apollo Saving
13,
Private Ryan,
all that. But yeah, in 88, Big was like the first where you kind of got a hint of, oh, he can pull off drama.
He can carry a movie.
Yeah, I think he did a drama movie earlier in the 80s called Never Say Goodbye or something like that. It was kind of like a war movie drama. My mom watched it. I remember we rented it and she watched it. I couldn't get into it, so it didn't do very well. But so he had dipped his toe in it, but it wasn't the right movie. But I think Big was what really kind of
with Big. I think the Oscars were very snobby about comedies at the time, but I think he was nominated for a lot of other acting awards for Big, if I remember correctly. And then that sort of kind of maybe opened the door for him to try more straight drama.
Because I feel like by the time I was conscious of who Tom Hanks was, he was already a pretty well-rounded actor. He did the drama and the comedy. But then like I see stuff like this, and then I remember, what's that movie, Bachelor Party?
Yes.
That was
he's
next movie,
in those like kind of out there weird screwball comedies, and I'm just like, really weird. Okay.
Yeah, you go back to like, you know, some of the lesser known ones like Volunteers, him and I think it's John Candy's in that one too.
Yeah.
The wild and zany kind of Tom Hanks, and even so much in Dragnet he did with Dan Aykroyd. He was once again the wild and crazy, you know, where Aykroyd was the straight man and he was the wild and crazy cop. So kind of the early to mid 80s, he was definitely heavy duty comedy, and late 80s when he kind of started getting a little bit more grounded in the drama movies.
We've talked about how he and Michael Keaton kind of auditioned for the same roles. One got it, one didn't. Blah, blah. But really, they were kind of interchangeable in the early 80s. They really had the same on-screen persona back then, and they kind of went in different directions, but they both kind of ended up in drama.
Have similar trajectories.
I was going to say they're very similar in the sense of going from straight comedy to more drama, and being doing well in both. You know, like they both had strong hits in comedy, strong hits in drama, and you know, Tom Hanks probably has been more recognized and worked more than Keaton did. All right, and then we've got Daryl Hannah as Madison. Before Daryl Hannah was cast, the role had been previously turned down by P.J. Soles, Tatum O'Neal, Michelle Pfeiffer, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Melanie Griffith, Diane Lane, Kathleen Turner, and Sharon Stone, supposedly. Diane Lane chose to do Streets of Fire and The Cotton Club instead. Daryl Hannah made her film debut in Brian De Palma's supernatural horror film The Fury in 1978. She had starred in various films across the years, including Ridley Scott's science fiction thriller Blade Runner in 1982, the romantic comedies Summer Lovers in 1982 and Roxanne in 1987. She also appeared in Oliver Stone's drama Wall Street in 1987, and in the comedy drama that Bethany and I talked about a couple years ago, Steel Magnolias in 1989.
My favorite movie of all time.
I think what helped her land the role was she had been swimming mermaid style with her legs bound together since she was a child because of her fascination with the Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid story. In the documentary in the DVD, Tom Hanks recalled how the other cast members would drop French fries over the side of the tank to her as though she were a trained sea mammal, as she couldn't leave the water while her legs were shrink wrapped with the mermaid fin. But I also read that she could swim faster than the cameraman could keep up with her. That's how
amazing.
That's how fast. And then she made a comment. It might be later in my notes, but she was talking about after doing all those scenes for so long, she told somebody like a couple of months out, she's like, I don't know how to swim regular anymore. I've gotten so accustomed to swimming with the fin. She's like, I forgot how to use my feet like a regular swimmer. This was for sure the first movie I saw Daryl Hannah in. I was too young to see Blade Runner when it came out, and The Fury probably. Yeah, any thoughts on Daryl Hannah for this role?
I love her hair in this movie. That is always the thing I think about when I think about this movie is her hair is just, I just love it. That's my first impression. Ben, you got anything more insightful than her hair is great?
I watched this one with my wife. I think it's the first one for your podcast that I've watched.
Usually
with
been one
my
of the
wife.
kids. Yeah.
I finally got her to watch something with me. She noticed that Daryl Hannah's hair was changing length depending on what it needed to cover. So,
yeah. Lots of extensions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
How long is your hair? It's strategic length.
Right. I did read that she was very self-conscious about her body when they filmed. Like she was very concerned about showing too much in the scenes. So, but being PG, it teetered with the line a little bit, in a few scenes, I believe. So, but lots of no worse than the old intros to the James Bond movies. Those are all silhouette, women or whatever. So.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked her in this. I mean, I've never been a huge Daryl Hannah fan. I think Still Magnolias is probably the one that I've liked her the most in, just because it's a more kind of a fun character. This one is good. It was good to rewatch it again, and she's funny. So yeah, but
she's really funny in it. And she does the born sexy yesterday trope very well in this movie. She says I don't know what's going on around me, but she flips it around in that Alan is constantly getting himself in danger, and she is constantly having to save him. So, yes, while they're on land, he has to practically raise her like she's a child. But when they're in the water, he would die without her, literally.
All right, moving right along. We'll go to Eugene Levy as Dr. Walter Kornbluth. Levy started his career writing and acting in the Canadian television sketch series SCTV from 76 to 84, earning 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for outstanding writing for a variety series. He also appeared in the films National Lampoon's Vacation in 83, Multiplicity in 96. He also became known for co-writing appearances in a string of films with Christopher Guest, including Waiting for Guffman in 96, Best in Show in 2000, A Mighty Wind in 2003, and For Your Consideration in 2006. He also appeared in a series of the American Pie films, which is a very, very limited filmography for him because he's been in a ton of stuff. But
yeah. Most recently, Schitt's Creek is his biggest. Yeah.
I
love Eugene Levy, and I love his arc in this movie. Like at first, he's just such a little dink. Like you just don't like him. He's such a little goober. Yeah. And then by the end of it, he really has a good turn to the point where you're just like, okay, yeah, let's do this.
He is kind of the only one that really has like a full character arc, in the movie. Everybody else has, a little, but his is the most pronounced for sure.
The most interesting, at least.
His character is almost like I don't know that he changes that much. It's just you see different side of him later in the movie.
Yeah.
Early in the movie, he's frustrated with everything. He's just yelling all the time, and then later in the movie when he kind of sees what's at stake and decides he wants
the
to
consequences of his actions.
Yeah,
right.
He just wanted to be believed, and then he's believed. He still isn't respected, and now the creature that he's been chasing is going to be killed. We've got 2 of America's dads in this movie, Tom Hanks and Eugene Levy, despite Eugene Levy, I believe, being Canadian. So he can be Canada's dad, I guess.
Well, another great movie dad
is
another great movie dad is John Candy. I mean, let's not
just not in this movie.
Dad or uncle, Uncle Buck. So. But speaking of John Candy, he actually wanted to play the role of Dr. Walter Kornbluth. That's the role he really wanted. But Ron Howard convinced him to play Freddie instead. So it was John Candy who recommended Eugene Levy for the role of Dr. Kornbluth, which I thought was very good. So let's talk about John Candy as Freddie Bauer. Candy rose to national prominence like Eugene Levy with the SCTV sketch comedy series. He rose to international fame in the 80s with his roles in comedic films such as Stripes in 81, Brewster's Millions in 85, Armed and Dangerous in 86, Spaceballs in 87, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in 87, The Great Outdoors in 88, Uncle Buck in 89, and Cool Runnings in 93. He also appeared in supporting roles in the Blues Brothers in 80, National Lampoon's Vacation in 83, Little Shop of Horrors in 86, Home Alone in 90, and Nothing But Trouble in 1991. What a run he had. So, but greatly missed. John Candy was one of my favorites. Still one of my favorites, but that was one of the deaths that really kind of hit me pretty hard when I found out he passed. So him and Chris Farley were both, favorites of mine. So gone too soon. Thinking back on this movie before I rewatched a couple years ago, I might have forgotten that John Candy was in this movie. Like I remembered Tom Hanks. I remembered Daryl Hannah. I think I remembered Eugene Levy because he's, the bad guy, but I forgot that John Candy played his brother. And he's not in that movie a whole lot, but
boy, is he loud when he is.
Yeah. He's memorable when he's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I that's what struck me as the funniest this time watching it again were the scenes just between Hanks and John Candy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where, I mean, it was just some really good writing and they both just made it really funny. And
they had good
I had just forgotten how, what's that?
I was just saying they have good chemistry.
Oh yes. Yeah. And then I thought, I had the same thought. I was like, I thought that word, they have good chemistry on screen together. And then I thought, well, did they work together again? I couldn't remember. And I looked it up. And as you said, Volunteers. Yeah. That was the only other time they worked together. And that one, I remember going to see that one in the theater too, and coming out disappointed. Like, it's not awful, but it's also
not
just
great.
It's not splash.
Yeah.
It's not as good as.
Yeah. That's one that I don't think I think I might have watched it on cable when I was younger, but I watched it again a couple of years ago and I was like, yeah, I can see where this one's kind of forgotten. It's not really one that you want to watch on a regular basis, but yeah, the two writers, I don't remember their names. That's the one I always remember when we go back to it.
Babalu Mandel and Lowell Gans.
There you go. There's such funny names. And I remember, but I remembered seeing those names on sitcoms as I was growing up because they were primarily sitcom writers. And so there's a lot of that sitcom kind of banter in the movie. And so I think that's another reason why it appealed to, I mean, we talked about this, I think before in one of the other previous episodes where you have to remember in the 80s, sitcom was king. Like sitcoms were everywhere. And that's what people were accustomed to watching. Television was very huge. So to go to the movies and still have that kind of TV banter worked. Like it kind of gets frowned upon now. Like it's like with film and TV, like there's this, I say a feud, but like
there's a divide.
Between the industries. But I think that worked, like especially so like we talk about Mr. Mom, which they also wrote. There's a lot of that sitcom situational comedy, which is not sitcom, but like some of the things that happen, like even in this one, it's like it's so ludicrous, like that would never really happen. But that was what sitcoms were, was the outrageous things that would happen to regular people and how they react to it. And that's what made it funny. So to see that, kind of thrown into these kind of movies as well, is what I think made them work and why we, as older people like myself, endear them so much, because we remember how great those sitcoms were and how the movies were a good, combination of that as well.
Right.
I think I explained that well. Yeah. It made better sense in my brain.
Did you know that Lowell Gans is in Splash?
Yes. Yeah. I have that mentioned. We'll get there. Yeah. The cameos are at the end. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. So back to John Candy. So we talked about his scene. So for the racquetball scene, John Candy did it with very little sleep. Producer Ryan Grazer revealed he stayed out with Jack Nicholson until 4 or 5 in the morning and then went right to work. He revealed that Candy had a lot of endurance. He also revealed that, quote unquote, the night with Nicholson, I think he overdid it. So he literally ran into the ball that hit him in the head. That was real. And we didn't anticipate. I knew he'd have to shoot it with many shots, but the minute he hit the ball, it hit him right in the head. he couldn't get out of the way of it. It was perfect. So he did that in one take. That they thought they were going to do that over and over again. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that same anecdote today, and I thought it was funny that John Candy apparently came back and he told him I had to go out drinking with him. Like Jack Nicholson knew who I was.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like that wasn't like something they planned. Like he was at the bar,
right?
And Jack Nicholson recognized him. They got to talking, and he said, the other one I read was he kept saying, "Look, man, I gotta go to work tomorrow," and he was like, "You'll be fine. You'll be fine." So, but he was also very late to filming that day, and he kept apologizing, so he felt really bad about it. So Daryl Hannah gushed of her Canadian co-star. She said, "I just absolutely loved him. He was just so full of heart and soul and so hilarious. Tears coming out of your eyes, pee your pants hilarious." She said the pair became firm friends on set, later planning a comedy together that was cut tragically short by Candy's death, and even formed an unlikely dynamic on set. She said, "I used to sit on his lap all the time, and he would talk for me, and I'd mime what he was saying like a ventriloquist doll. He'd answer questions for me in interviews," which I thought was just really cute. So that was
Aww.
I had to mention that, just the guy he was. So
I love John Candy in most movies. I'm not a fan of his character in this movie. I think he does a good job with it.
Oh yeah.
But I don't like the character. But he, like, literally every other movie I see him in, and you gotta love him. Even when he's kind of being a jerk, you're just like, okay, but he kind of reminds you of your dad, just like really grumpy about something, but still you love him anyways.
Yeah.
Except for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where he's just lovable and not grumpy.
Obnoxious, but lovable.
Obnoxious,
right?
But lovable.
Yeah. How I like to think of myself most of the time.
I'm James McComb, reporting live from home in my bathrobe and slippers. Tonight, we're talking Dunkin' Polar Peppermint Coffee. Gene's here with the latest. Gene, do you copy?
The home with Dunkin' is where you want to be.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Yeah. I liked the dynamic between him and Tom Hanks or Alan, because even though he's like, John Candy's a schmuck in this movie.
Right.
He's just awful. But then, like, when it comes to protecting his brother, he does show up. He's there for him.
Oh, yeah.
Like when he's being, like when the press is trying to overwhelm him.
That's the scene I was just thinking of when you mentioned that.
And he jumps in and he's like, "Hey, is anybody here from Penthouse? Then we're not talking."
Right.
And he's out. And it's like, okay, I get it. You're a little bit of a pervert. A bit of a pervert.
Right.
But like, also it's cute that he like shows up for his little brother.
Yeah, but that's still his brother. He's going to protect him. Yeah. So yeah.
And then at the end, he takes the fall for everything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the first time it occurred to me watching it this time. It's occurred to me before, but I surely not when I was a kid. But the fate of Freddie, John Candy's character, is so he gets arrested and probably sent to prison for like interfering with the government experiment.
Oh,
and,
probably,
he thinks that his brother like fell into the water and died and drowned and died. Like,
right.
He's got there's no happy sequel to Splash.
No.
Starring Freddie.
Yeah. But once again, it's fantasy. That's why it's and it's a sitcom. Like in the next episode, we talked to the judge. It's all okay. It would have been just
everything's fine.
Everything's fine. But you're right.
John Candy was apparently friends with the president somehow.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's
maybe
true.
he got out of it that way.
He got a pardon. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
What a weird scene though. Like it could have been anybody that was coming to town, but it had to be the president of the United States.
The president.
Yeah. One more specific character, and then we'll get into the cameos. Dottie Goodman as Mrs. Stimler, the secretary. I knew she looked familiar. I was like, I've seen her in something else. She was a frequent guest on The Tonight Show in the 1950s. She was also the 1978 summer blockbuster film Grease. That's where I knew her from. She played Blanche Odell, the zany student popular secretary in the principal's office. She reprised her role again in 1982 for Grease 2. In 79, she appeared in the Mary Tyler Moore Hour. In 81 to 82, had the recurring role of Aunt Sophia in Different Strokes. Aside from film and television appearances, she also voiced Miss Miller in the TV series Alvin and the Chipmunks and the film spinoff The Chipmunk Adventure. She also played on Punky Brewster as Punky's teacher.
Cute.
So, but yeah, that
I did
one
not
of my favorite characters. Yeah,
I did not connect her to Grease, but yeah, she's so fun.
Yeah.
Your dad called. My dad died 5 years ago. Oh, well, do you want me to get him for you?
Right. It's like, what happened to her? She got struck by lightning.
No.
Yeah.
And just like her randomly showing up, like with her bra on the outside of her shirt, or wearing a wig, or like a shower cap.
Yeah.
And no explanation.
Right. That's the beauty of it. All right, screenwriters, as Ben mentioned earlier, screenwriters Lowell Gans and Babalu Mandel both make cameo appearances in the film. Gans plays Stan, the tour guide, in the scene set at the Statue of Liberty. Mandel plays Rudy, the man in charge of ice skate rentals, who tackles Hanks's character when he tries to run out with his skate still on. Director Ron Howard's father, actor Rance Howard, can be seen early in the film as Mr. McCullough, the unhappy customer screaming at Alan about his cherries. And then, of course, Howard's brother Clint Howard appears as a wedding guest, identified by Candy's character as the bride's brother and yelled at by Hanks, which is actually Hanks's brother. Yeah. Which I love that part. She's not coming. You want your money back?
So funny.
You want the weather?
Well, and it's because it just seems to come out of nowhere. Like he's been giving, oh yeah, she's sick. Oh yeah, she has the flu. Nope, she's not gonna make it. She left me. Yeah, he just explodes for seemingly no reason. It's just great.
Well, everybody comes up to him and they ask where she is. They don't ask how he is. I mean,
yeah,
it's
that's
like,
fair.
All right, well, let's talk about iconic scenes, favorite scenes. When somebody says splash, what's the first scene that pops into your head, Bethany?
I think it's the scene where she gets into the bathtub and she runs the bath, and you really see her as a mermaid, like that way. And then he's coming, and well, I was shy. You were shy,
right?
Like after all that has happened beforehand, all of a sudden, like I don't know. I always think about that scene and just the tension building, and it's fun. It's a good one.
What about you, Ben?
I think my favorite scenes are the scenes with Tom Hanks and John Candy together. But the scene I've thought about the most over the years is the scene where they're walking down the street trying to think of a name for her, and they pass Madison Avenue, and she says Madison, and Tom Hanks is like, that's not a name.
Right.
And I remember that being like got a laugh in '84. Madison was not a name in '84. It was a joke to name someone Madison.
Right.
So,
that was very confusing for me, because by the time I came around, Madison was for sure a name.
Yeah. It's weird how, because now, like, I don't know how many Madisons I've encountered.
Yeah, exactly.
Out there.
Exactly.
I used to work with a Madison every day. So yeah, they're all over.
Yeah,
I saw that a lot. Was she born in roughly 1985?
Probably, something like that.
Yeah, that came up a lot in the different trivia and research about how Madison became extremely popular after the movie came out, but at the time, no one was named Madison. And I think even one of the writers made a comment about it's odd to think of now. It's like it would be if someone was named, Barrett Parkway or something, just some random street name, which he makes a comment. He's like, I'm glad we didn't pass 54th Street. Like that's going to be your name. So. But even watching it today, when she was like, what about Madison? He's like, not Madison. I'm like, well, you can call her Maddie. And I'm like, well, that's what we do. We call Madison's Maddie, like, because it's a common name now. But yeah. Oh, man. For me, iconic scene, when I think of Splash, what scene do I think of? Probably because it was the little boy in me watching it for the first time, was her showing up in front of the Statue of Liberty and everybody's reaction. And, that was, emblazoned in my brain for a long time as a young boy, for obvious reasons. But so that's probably the most iconic scene for me.
Her hair, her hair was so pretty in that.
Yeah. Yes. Properly placed.
Yeah.
So well styled for having just jumped out of the water.
Yes. Yeah. Fully dry. Not a problem.
Man, but what I wouldn't give to have a mermaid's hair. Like just beautiful in the water, beautiful out of the water. Love it.
Well, let's talk about being, she is a magical creature. I mean, her legs appear when there's no when there's no fin, no water. So we talk about the different lengths of her hair during the movie. Maybe that grows and shortens as well based on what kind of appearance she needs to make. So that's
absolutely
completely in the realm of logic. I'm sure Laramie will agree because there has to be logic in every movie that goes along with the story. So we'll see if that passed his test. We can ask him later.
I like this in-universe lore that you've developed here, just to explain a couple of
blame it on Laramie.
Inconsistencies.
And also her hair dries on its own. When she comes out of the ocean. Well, yes. She would have had to dry her legs a little bit before. So maybe it took some time. Maybe her hair dries quickly.
Yeah. Which kind of goes to one of the pivotal moments in the movie that made sense as a kid. Watching it now is like, but when she gets sprayed with water by Eugene Levy's character, how much water does it take to transform? Does she have to be, I was thinking she had to be submerged in water, not necessarily just sprayed with water. So it was a little less convincing to me. Yeah.
She were to spill a glass of water on her lap, would that be it?
Right.
If she would have fallen on the ice rink, would there have been a problem?
Yeah, you would have thought the ice skating would have been a little more traumatic for her. Like, this is what happens when water melts. I mean, water freezes. It never gets cold where I come from, which is not my favorite scene because that's when Tom Hanks becomes a complete jerk and just goes off on her.
He's kind of a jerk throughout the movie a lot of the time. He's not my favorite version of Tom Hanks. He can be sweet, but he gets pretty demanding of a woman he's barely known.
And now these messages.
Hey there, fellow 80s movie aficionados. Are you ready to embark on a nostalgia-filled journey to the greatest era of cinema? Then look no further than the Retro Life for You 80s Movie Podcast. Join us every week as we rewind the VHS tapes, dust off those Betamax classics, and dive headfirst into the neon-soaked, totally tubular world of the 1980s movies. From the Brat Pack to action heroes, we've got it all covered. Breakfast Club, Ghostbusters, E.T. and Indiana Jones, and more. It's like a trip in Doc Brown's time machine, but without the DeLorean. So whether you're a die-hard 80s film buff or just curious about the cinematic gems of the past, Retro Life for You is your ticket to the ultimate movie time warp. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Retro Life for You, and we can be found anywhere you listen to your podcast, as well as on our website, www.retrolife4u.com.
What's up, dudes? I'm Jerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
and Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
All right, well, let's talk about some trivia and scenes. Maybe we will think of some other scenes as well. So the beach where Alan first encounters Madison is on the former Gorder Cay in the Bahamas, which is now known as Castaway Cay, the private island of Disney Cruise Line.
Oh.
Another fun fact that when the movie was in production and it was the quick to mermaid movie. They didn't want it to be associated with the Warren Beatty movie, so it was titled Castaway Cay instead of Splash during pre-production. Disney was very much involved.
Yeah, my wife did point out that too. She said that's no beach near Cape Cod. We're on Cape Cod. Yeah. So
yeah, it was very, very tropical.
Yeah. And I don't think there are beautiful reefs just, in Hudson Bay or whatever.
No. The sand does not look like that, I'm sure. Or crystal clear water. The fountain from the movie is now on display at Disney's MGM Studios at Walt Disney World. The mermaid fin that Daryl Hannah wore is behind the bar at Planet Hollywood in downtown Disney, which makes me very upset because I was just there like a month ago and did not see that when I was there. But I also was
Disney
at the bar.
World that's in California,
Florida.
though.
No, Disneyland is California. Disney World is Florida.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. No problem. Had to keep that in mind. I've had to keep that straight in my mind for a long time.
But speaking of that fountain, how did the fountain get into the apartment?
How does the plumbing work when they put it in? That's what I was trying to figure out. How did
they get it up the elevator, up the door, the door?
Right.
And then set the water up in a day. Less than a day.
It's a mermaid movie. I think
it is a mermaid movie.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right, Ben.
I just wanted one scene where the downstairs neighbors were like, what is going on up there?
Is the roof caving in?
Right.
It feels like the roof is warped in a little bit.
Why is the ceiling dripping every day? Anyway. Oh man. All right. So when Madison takes a bath to transform back into a mermaid, the effect of the skin turning to scales was done by using a vacuum effect on an appliance that was placed over Daryl Hannah's leg. She was required to place her left hand over the edge of the appliance to hide the edge of the effect. When the vacuum was activated, the upper layer of fake skin was pulled down over the false scales, and a false pectoral fin was triggered to extend upwards, completing the illusion. Note that some of the scales don't fully appear as they didn't fully pull down because of the vacuum effect, but it was still a cool effect. Even watching it today, I was like, man, that's really cool how they did that. Once again, thankful for practical effects instead of CGI, which it would have totally been CGI today.
Oh yeah.
So.
Can you imagine 1984 CGI?
I don't want to. Well, I think we've seen that in some other things. Okay, I'll read this one and then we'll jump into a few more. Daryl Hannah, a vegetarian, refused to eat real lobster for the restaurant scene. The crew scooped out the insides of real cooked lobsters and filled them with hearts of palm and mashed potatoes. Ron Howard said Hannah cried after each take over the deaths of the lobsters for their shells.
Oh,
she's a diehard vegetarian.
Yeah, she takes it seriously.
She did. Yeah. And then I also read that she doesn't eat heart. I think someone that said it was leeks was in there as well. And so every time she eats leeks, she gets sad because she thinks about the lobsters. Such a gentle person that went on to be in Kill Bill and was like, chopping people up. So that's what actors do. All right. According to Splash screenwriter Bruce J. Friedman's memoir, Lucky Bruce, the original screenplay of Splash had a decidedly Jewish tone. The human protagonist was a Jewish man named Adam who owned a smoked fish business, and the Poseidon character was modeled after famed Jewish entertainer Zero Mostel. However, the screenplay was rejected by United Artists for being, quote unquote, too Jewish. So Adam became Alan, and his business went from selling smoked fish to selling produce instead. In fact, Friedman explicitly recalled one comment that he got from a UA executive telling him that Poseidon comes off as being too Jewish. Think John Gielgud. Like, wow. So,
ooh.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I have to say about that.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. There was a deleted scene, where Madison meets an elderly, ugly mermaid known as the Sea Hag, who warns her of falling in love with a human, was filmed but dropped before the film was released. Short parts of this complex scene can be seen on the DVD. The sequence would make the movie a lot more similar to Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. So, I remember this when we did the Little Mermaid episode, that they made Ariel's hair red instead of blonde as it was in the book because they didn't want her to look like Daryl Hannah from Splash. They didn't want it to be
pretty cool.
too similar.
I kind of like the idea that she is. I mean, you don't know for certain that she's alone, but I don't need a whole like mermaid backstory to understand the rest of this movie. And so I'm glad they didn't include that, honestly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure with budget wise, to keep it low budget, that was probably understandable. I do like how at the very end of the film, we know it's the credits and they're showing the credits and they're swimming, and the tail end. There's my fish pun. The end of that, you kind of see the city, the underwater city, kind of from a distance. So I did think that was a cool little nod of like she wasn't really crazy. Like you're going to take me to a place that you can't come back from. So yeah, so I did like that a little bit. Did you know there was a made-for-TV sequel?
Oh, no. I did not.
A Disney TV movie aired on ABC on May 1st and again on May 8th because it was so great they had to play it twice. In 1988, Splash 2, TOO, lone cast member from the original was Dodie Goodman, reprising her role as Mrs. Stimler. In the sequel, Alan, now played by Todd Waring, and Madison, played by Amy Yazbek, live on land to help Freddie, played by Donovan Scott, and Bauer Produce and save a captive dolphin.
Wow. Splash also.
Yes. Splash 2, TOO.
And the only one they could get back was like the most random character. That's great.
Right.
Well, I'm kind of curious now to see.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay, how did they explain how Freddie got out of all the trouble he was in, and and why are they back when they explicitly said at the end of the first movie they couldn't never come back?
Yeah, so
yeah.
Does Alan grow a fin after being in the ocean for long enough?
Are you reading questions on the internet?
No, this is a question I have, and I'm looking at the pictures hoping it will answer it for me. So far, no answers.
No.
Like you mean like his legs turn into?
Yeah. Will his legs eventually turn into fins? Will he evolve enough so that he could survive in the ocean that he now lives in? These are the questions I need answers.
What if they have kids? That's
how do they have kids?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, we're thinking too much. Let's come back.
Does she lay eggs?
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. I need a moment.
Bethany's going to start her own podcast, Questions That I Need Answered, with Bethany Wells.
Called, I'm sorry, I need a moment.
All right, well, let's talk about box office and critical reception. Splash debuted in American theaters on March 9th, 1984, and dethroned Footloose from the #1 spot in its second week. It also beat another new release, Children of the Corn, which landed in #4. Splash finished its run with a gross of $69.8 million in the United States and Canada, making it the 10th highest grossing film of 1984. Once again, why is this movie not readily available to purchase anywhere in physical copy? Anyway, Rotten Tomatoes. I'm amazed by these scores. Rotten Tomatoes, 91% on the tomato meter. So critics gave it a 91. Audience score is a 63. What is wrong with you people? I am like, that doesn't make sense. But it's just as bad. But same, not quite as bad. But IMDb, 6.3 out of 10 with viewers and a 71 on Metacritic. So I read a few of the like short reviews from viewers, and I'm like, these are millennials trying to understand an 80s movie. They're like, this movie makes no sense. Everybody's so obnoxious.
Really does not make any sense. But it's nostalgia.
Don't agree with them. That's not, it is nostalgia. You're right. I mean, that's why we love it. But yeah, that's kind of the bad thing about the critics part, or the the new audience scoring or whatever on these with these movies, because if they didn't see it when the time that it came out, you miss some of the.
Yeah, I guess I'm realizing that it's two different things. Whether a movie holds up, whether it holds up for you, and whether it holds up for like your kids.
Right.
I watched Splash again the other day, and it held up, and my wife said the same thing. Held up really well for us.
Right.
We remember seeing it as kids. But I have a feeling if any of my kids had agreed to watch it with us, they would have had the same kind of reaction. Just like,
my thing about it is that it feels like this movie. When I was a kid, I loved it and I watched it because it was mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching it now and I'm just like, I cannot imagine my kids sitting and paying attention to this movie. Very little happens in it. It's not a kid's movie at all, really.
No.
And so it's one of those weird things where, like, as I get older, movies that I enjoyed as a kid, I watch now and I'm like, my kids would not enjoy this.
Right.
This is not, there's nothing here for them.
Mm-hmm.
But why did I love it so much?
Right. One of my favorite lines from the returning character for the sequel, Miss Stimler, this made me laugh. It's when after, it's been known that she is a mermaid, and Freddie comes and rescues him from the reporters, and they get back to the office and she says, "Oh, Mr. Bauer, you had a million messages. I wrote them down right here. You got calls from CBS, NBC, ABC, AP, UPI, Ted Turner, Time, Newsweek, Marineland, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and Mrs. Paul." And the Mrs. Paul, like, I lost it.
Yeah.
I was like, that was funny. Like, that is a good line. Like, good.
It's really good.
Right here. Like, what is
and
Miss
her
Paul
timing
do?
on it?
Yes.
So good. So perfect. Like, all of her lines.
Yeah.
Just it, because she plays it so earnestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is not playing it for the joke. Like, she is this person who is seriously struggling, but has a good attitude about it.
Right. Which why they don't fire her. It's like, yeah, she'll be all right. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
What's she gonna mess up? We sell fruit. Like, they sell fruit, but somehow are important enough to have dinner with the president.
Right.
They sell a lot of fruit.
Right. It must
so
be
much fruit.
Freddie's driving a sports car convertible, so they must be doing all right. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you, Ben. Always a pleasure to have you both on the podcast. Always a great time. All right, folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. If you had as much fun as we did, please show us some love with an awesome review and a shiny 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button and spread the word to all your 80s flick loving pals. If you want to chat about your favorite flick, you can reach us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you're feeling super cool, why not support the show over at buymeacoffee.com. You can totally rock some killer 80s Flick Flashback gear and original designs by checking out our online store at 80sflickflashback.com and tpublic.com for all the nostalgic swag you could ever want. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Tim Williams for the 80s Flick Flashback Podcast. I don't understand. All my life, I've been waiting for someone. And when I find her, she's a fish.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.